All right, everybody, this is Sheets. And first of all, I apologize for the late release of this. To be completely honest, I didn't even realize that the tournament started today. Otherwise, I mean, I usually do these the day before, but I did have time to go through everything. And I guess the benefit of waiting until this late time is that I have the most updated numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my analysis of the slate, and I'm going to do so using my sheets, which I have shared up here on the screen right here. Now, this is usually only for premium members, but if you're diligent enough to latch on to this YouTube video with about an hour and a half to 2 hours before lock, you can consider this a free look. And for those of you that are premium subscribers, and you know what this is all about by now, this is good aggregation of industry-wide models that has been weighted and underweighted and overweighted based on my back testing software, which I basically run through all the projection models for accuracy and do a little tweaks and a little this, that, and the other thing, and come up with what I think are pretty solid numbers, both from a fantasy points perspective and from an ownership perspective. So there's a couple of things I want to highlight. First of all, and this is, you'll get this when you do this enough. I just, by eyeballing this sheet here, see that there's a lot of kind of low owned guys that rate really high. And there are some kind of fishy guys that are probably too high owned. And what I like to do is just kind of visualize that on my sheet here and just kind of take advantage of it. Now, this is for kind of single entry hand building type stuff, because I mean, you could certainly just upload all of my stuff into SaberSim or Fantasy Cruncher or Writers HQ and build good lineups. But this is when you're going to hand build. I mean, so the first thing I'll look at, okay, you see Jon Rahm is the highest rated golfer, and as you know, it's by a decent amount, I guess, and he's being owned accordingly. So there's really no particular edge in playing him, but there's no edge in fading him either. So you could definitely play him, and that's kind of the way I look at it. And the next thing I see is Tony Finau at 20% owned. Again, I don't see anybody in this top ranking that's more than 20% owned except for him. And it's not as if he rates that much higher than any of these other guys. So I'm kind of inclined to fade him. So the way I look at this, I see that Finau and Im are very close to one another. And yet Finau is about, 50% higher owned or 60% higher owned. So I would play Im over Finau in this slate. Next thing you'll notice is these next three guys are all pretty reasonable. I mean, you have DeChambeau at 14%, Thomas at 16%, Berger at 11%. The one thing I would throw in, and again, I don't call this narrative, but I guarantee you it's not factored into the projections, is that DeChambeau is coming off of a withdrawal due to a wrist injury. And although he is playing, I just feel as though somebody like him with a wrist injury is just not something I really want to get involved in. I mean, and this is kind of, you're gonna have to make your own decision, this type of thing, because he does rate to be the second best, projected golfer relative to value on the slate for me. But I just feel as though maybe I know a little bit too much about golf, that wrist injuries are, look, you could be a good 14 handicap and deal with a wrist injury, but if you have to hit the ball 370 yards against the best players in the world, I don't know if I want to do that at 15%. So as much as I like to play DeChambeau in general, because I do think he has a very, very high ceiling, I think I'm going to make the dangerous decision to fade him. But that's going to be up to you. Next guy I kind of see here, which is kind of interesting is Daniel Berger. So Berger is usually one of the DFS darlings. I mean, the models always love him. And as a result, his ownership usually is extremely high. But for some reason in this particular tournament, he's coming in at only about 11%. And I hate to say this, but I think something about that 10,000 price tag spooks people. I honestly believe this. I believe that if he were 9,900, he might be 15% owned. But that 5-digit salary, I think, does spook people a little bit. So I think this is a very, very strong play. I mean, Berger's usually the guy that people like to play like 8,800 and, you know, eat the chalk and all this stuff. People are not used to paying 10K for him, especially when DeChambeau is 9,900, or you can pay, you know, a few hundred more and get Justin Thomas, or 100 more you can get Xander Schauffele. So I think that is going to keep his ownership somewhat low. So I like Berger a lot here. And then Finau, as Finau was described before, you know, and Bobby kind of touched on this before. He's definitely not the guy that you really want to play as chalk in general. Although it's fair to say that you don't want to play that many golfers as chalk in general. But, so at 20%, I think it's a little bit rich. So if you get to him, great. But I would make sure that if you played him, then you've got a bunch of single-digit ownership guys as well. Schauffele seems very reasonable. Nothing terrific. You know, he's rated very strongly. He's owned, you know, mid-double digits. I think it's fair. And then you're back to Sungjae Im, who I think is, you know, at the price point better than Finau, right? And then you have a couple of these low-owned guys. We're gonna get to the cheapos in a minute, but you have Hideki. Nobody ever likes to play him, but he's like 11%. Whatever. Other guys to kind of touch on before we get into some stronger plays is you see Sam Burns at 15% ownership. I'm just never going to play a guy like this. When I say a guy like this, I just mean a guy that's just not going to rate all that high. That's going to be owned higher than these guys. You know, that's just not something I want to do. So like I said, if I get to him in optimizer builds where you're setting your lineups to have some low owned complements to your favorites, yeah, you can play him, but I would be more inclined to fade him, you know, in the name of lower owned guys. So let's go over a couple of them. I'm seeing Dustin Johnson at 8%. I mean, sounds good to me. I mean, I'll take a shot at that. I'm seeing some value guys, Vegas, Neiman, Tringali, all of them under 10%, rated really high. I mean, I like that. I got a couple of other single-digit guys like Matt Jones, Mackenzie Hughes, about 6%. Then you have these guys like Griffin, List, Wise. I mean, why pay up double-digit ownership for basically the same play when you can get Tringale, Matt Jones, and Mackenzie Hughes? I mean, I'd rather dip into any of these single-digit guys, right, than play someone like even the Zalatoris or Griffin or List. So there's guys that you can play here, and it's just a question of how much risk you want to take. See, I don't even think you're taking that much risk by doing this. In other words, if you played Berger and then Hideki, if you just really just played only guys 10% or less, for example, you could probably get some really, really strong lines. Or if you didn't want to do that, again, if you wanted to, I don't want to say eat the chalk, but I mean, it's probably a good play. If you wanted to play Rahm, you can make some builds where you play Rahm and a bunch of these mids, or I bet you could play Rahm and Berger. Let's see if we can do that. Want to have some fun? Let's try. Let's what have you played Rahm and Berger? What do you got? 7,200 per person? Can we get away with that? You know what? Not quite. You can't quite get that by playing both Rahm and Berger. But you could play Rahm and Im, for example, I think. So if you played Ram and Sanjay Im, then you're getting, ooh, maybe not even, because that's 7,300. And I didn't think I got that many great guys under 7,300. No, I mean, you'd have to, so you couldn't quite do that. So you don't want to play Ram and Im. So then what you're probably doing is playing Ram, and this is presuming you play Ram. You don't want to play McNeely at 15% probably. Again, if you want to play a 23% guy, you want to play singles. You can't play Dustin Johnson. So you play like Tringali and Mackenzie Hughes, and you can play Corey Connors at less than 10%. That's probably a good idea, you know? So I'm not saying not to play Rom. I mean, Rom's a good play, but make sure that you use him along with these single-digit own guys, which make a lot of sense. Okay. Let me just scroll down, make sure I didn't forget anything egregious here. Like, yeah, I see like Ryan Palmer, 13% owned down there. I can't play anymore. Leishman, 14%. Cam Davis, 14%. Max Homa, 13%. Any guys that are rated this far down on the list for me that are rated, you know, over 10%, I want no part of. I mean, honestly. So yeah, and I don't say no part of, but again, same thing. Like if you want to play one of them, you want to make sure that the rest of your lineup is probably, you know, significantly lower owned. Let me just go back. Vegas, strong play. Neiman, strong play. Dustin Johnson, strong play. Tringali, strong play. Rom. Boy, this is going to be your decision, right? If you don't play Rom, you could do a lot of cool stuff. If you play Rom, then you're probably playing these middling guys, which is fine. Let's just see, for example, let's see what a lineup would look like if we did Rom. That's perfect. You have 77-60. You have all those guys I just mentioned. You could fill out really, really good lineups. And, you know, I think I might just do that. I think I'm going to play like a bunch of lineups. You lock in Rom, and look, it probably needs to win the tournament for you to do it. So I'll do two builds. One is I'll do Rom with a bunch of the 7,500s. And then another, I'll fade Rom. And then maybe, let's see if you faded Rom, and let's say you played Dustin Johnson, for example, which I thought was kind of cool. Let's say you play Johnson and Im. Can get away with that. That's interesting. Yeah, you could do that. So you could pay all the way up for Rom and play those middling guys, or you could play Johnson and Im and play those middling guys. And you're going to be getting low ownership, right? Dustin Johnson, 8%. Im is 13, but you know what? Play Berger. Sorry, so don't play Im. Play Berger with Johnson and those middling guys. Kind of like this. Actually, glad I did this video because I'm probably gonna try to do something. All right, let's take a look at FanDuel, and then I'll look at Yahoo and see if there's anything that kind of stands out over there. Now you'll notice that when you play FanDuel, you just get a lot of stars and scrubs because you can afford it. So again, likewise, I think the same thing. I'm going to look at ownership, and you see Rom here is extremely chalky. So like I said, same story. You could play him, but then I would, you know, play lower owned guys alongside him, like Matt Jones or Speed. Probably can't afford, but Alex Noren, guys like this. And if you don't play Rom, then you could do other stuff. So who's low owned here? Sanjay Im again, 10%. Brooks Koepka 7%. That's something you could do over here. On DraftKings, you didn't rate all that high, but FanDuel, because you could afford these guys, it naturally wants you to play these higher priced golfers. What else stands out over here that wasn't so much on DraftKings? Not that much. Matt Jones again, Corey Connors again, Alex Noren again, Cameron Tringali again, not bad. Neiman again. Okay. All right, let me take a look at Yahoo and see what that looks like. Yahoo, it rates a little differently, but you see guys like Francisco Molinari, he's getting a little bit of ownership. You can go back to Tom Hoagie as a cheapo. It's a little harder to rate these guys here. But Rom still looks like a strong play over here. Luke List, again, he's kind of owned. Alex Smalley, 3% owned on FanDuel. You go right back to Hudson Swafford back to back at 3%. Snedeker, he's popping because he showed a little signs of life last week, but I don't think I would do it. But that's pretty much all I have. I'm going to upload this, and then I'm going to do some lineup builds, and hopefully we get there. Good luck, everybody.